When the truck finally came to a stop, the girls found themselves in a military barracks. The next few months were a blur for Jahan, who regularly passed out during her confinement. We lay there like corpses, side by side. There were 20, maybe 30 of us, confined to one room. The only time we saw daylight was when the door creaked open and the soldiers marched in. Then the raping would begin. In the waning days of the British Empire, the sun set on its Indian domain. As World War II fades into history, Britain, weakened and indebted, can no longer hold on to its Indian subcontinent. India's Hindu population, led by Mohandas Gandhi, seeks a one-nation solution. Muhammad Jinnah, leading India's Muslim population, argues for a separate homeland for India's Muslims. In 1947, Muhammad Jinnah gets his way. The borders of East and West Pakistan are drawn and soon become a bloodied scar of desperation, migration, and massacre. The creation of Pakistan does not resolve the communal tensions, but rather reconfigures them across new lines. In the wake of partition, the profound religious and cultural differences between Hindus and Muslims, previously intermingled across the subcontinent, become starkly delineated by national borders. Despite their shared religion, the two wings of Pakistan, West and East, are divided not only by geography, but by deep-seated economic and linguistic disparities. West Pakistan, containing the political and military elite, wields disproportionate power, imposing controlling economic policies that favor the West over the more densely populated and ethnically distinct East Pakistan. This centralization of authority in the West exacerbates feelings of disenfranchisement among Bengalis in the East, who see their rich cultural identity and language sidelined and their economic contributions undervalued. Cultural differences between West and East Pakistan further deepen the divide. West Pakistan is predominantly Punjabi and Pashtun, cultures with tribal and martial traditions, deeply influenced by the arid landscapes and the historic invasions through the Khyber Pass. Their society is more conservative and aligns closely with the Islamic traditions of the Middle East. They emphasize a centralized and authoritarian style of governance. West Pakistan declares the Urdu language, which is steeped in Persian and Arabic influence, as the official language of Pakistan, symbolizing the West's affinity with the broader Islamic world. In stark contrast, East Pakistan is predominantly Bengali, a people with a rich literary and cultural heritage rooted in the fertile deltas of the Ganges and Brahmaputra. Bengali society is more liberal and secular, with a long tradition of syncretism where Hindu and Islamic practices are interwoven. The Bengali language, with its own script and extensive literature, is a source of profound regional pride and identity. The exploitation of East Pakistan by the political and military leadership of the West sets the stage for severe economic and political grievances. The economic disparity is driven by policy and governance that prioritized West Pakistan's development at the expense of the East. Despite East Pakistan generating a significant share of the country's exports from its jute and tea industries, the revenue flows disproportionately to the West. Investments in infrastructure such as roads, schools, and hospitals are heavily skewed towards the West, leaving East Pakistan underdeveloped and its populace increasingly resentful. In the political arena, West Pakistan maintains a stranglehold on power. The constitutional framework and political decisions, including representation in the central government, are designed to keep the political elites of West Pakistan in control. Even when East Pakistanis are the majority of the population, they are underrepresented in civil services, military, and governing bodies. The decision-making processes are centralized in Islamabad, where policies are crafted without input from East Pakistani leaders, alienating the eastern region. Despite its economic contributions, East Pakistan receives only a fraction of the country's industrial investments and benefits from international aid. The jute industry, although flourishing, is controlled by West Pakistani businessmen, and the profits are rarely reinvested in East Pakistan. Additionally, the taxation system is structured such that it disproportionately burdens East Pakistan, yet the region sees minimal returns in services or development projects. The frustrations of the eastern populace are galvanized by the 1966 Six-Point Movement, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of the Awami League. Demanding greater autonomy and economic freedom for East Pakistan, these demands, viewed as radical by the government in West Pakistan, are outright rejected, further inflaming tensions. Yahya Khan is born in British India and educated at Colonel Brown's Cambridge School, established in India by the retired British Army Colonel William Brown. Brown chooses not to leave India after his military service and instead stays to devote his life to furthering education in the country. Yahya Khan enrolls in higher education at the University of Punjab, founded earlier by the British East India Company, and earns a bachelor's degree. Yahya receives his commission in the British Indian Army as an infantry officer and serves in North Africa during World War II. He is captured by the Axis forces and held as a prisoner of war, from which he later escapes and returns to India. After the partitioning of India and Pakistan, Yahya joins the Pakistan Army and is chosen to head the Army's planning board, set up by then-President Ayub Khan to modernize the Pakistan military. Yahya plays a pivotal role in supporting Ayub's re-election and, in return, receives promotions and billets, superseding his senior officers. By the age of 40, Yahya becomes the youngest general of the Pakistan Army. In 1969, faced with mounting political unrest following Pakistan's failed two-month war against India, Ayub Khan resigns from the presidency of Pakistan. Instead of stepping down and allowing elections to take place, he transfers power to Yahya Khan, allegedly telling him, "I am leaving it to you to pull the chestnuts out of the fire." Acknowledging the difficult challenge Yahya Khan would face in restoring stability to Pakistan. When General Yahya Khan takes over from Ayub Khan, he confronts a nation fraught with deep political and ethnic divisions. Recognizing the urgency of restoring order and legitimacy, he declares martial law across Pakistan, which includes suspending the constitution. Yahya Khan decides to hold the country's first general elections based on universal adult suffrage in 1970. The goal is to give the citizens a voice and thereby stabilize the political landscape. By conducting these elections, Yahya hopes to facilitate a transition to civilian rule based on a new legal and constitutional framework. However, the results further expose the deep-seated divisions between East and West Pakistan, particularly as the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, wins in a landslide victory, securing 167 assembly seats and claiming absolute majority over the Senate's 313 total seats. This gives Eastern Pakistan control over the National Assembly, which is set to write the country's new constitution. The Awami League is to codify the autonomy of Eastern Pakistan within the law. The Western Pakistan Minority Party declares a boycott of the National Assembly. Yahya Khan uses this as an excuse to indefinitely postpone the assembly and delay the transfer of power. This causes an outburst of bloody pro-independence demonstrations throughout East Pakistan. The army fires on demonstrators, killing hundreds. At night, the rioters attack soldiers, stealing their weapons. The leader of the Awami League, Sheikh Rahman, despite many of his supporters calling on him to declare independence, refuses. Instead, he declares a civil disobedience movement to achieve self-determination. He orders a strike against West Pakistan, suspends all taxation, and expresses a willingness to meet with Yahya Khan to negotiate for the creation of a new country, Bangladesh. To Yahya Khan, the threat of a declaration of independence represents an imminent crisis. Caught between the Awami League taking over Pakistan or East Pakistan rebelling, He meets with his top generals and devises a simple plan. They believe surely the soft and degenerate Bengalis cannot stand up to the Western Pakistan's strong military skill and valor. It is then that General Yahya Khan reportedly says, "Kill 3 million of them, and the rest will eat out of our hands." Their plan is to surprise East Pakistan and arrest Sheikh Mujibur, kill the remaining leaders of the Awami League, kill the Bengali members of the East Pakistan Army, kill the Bengali intellectuals and civil servants, kill the university students, destroy the supporters of the Awami League, and kill enough of East Pakistan's 10 million Hindus that they would flee across the border into India. Preparations are made for the invasion, and Yahya Khan arranges to meet with Sheikh Mujibur while the West Pakistan military moves into positions for the invasion. Although East Pakistan is aware of the troop buildups, Mujibur calls for continued non-violent resistance. On March 25th, Yahya Khan suddenly flies back to West Pakistan, and the army carries out its plan. Kill teams of Pakistani soldiers are given the addresses of their targets and go house to house, eliminating entire families. Sheikh Mujibur is captured and isolated. Yahya does not want to turn him into a martyr. Although many of the Awami League have fled, they are soon caught and killed. Tanks shell the university at Dhaka, and in the morning, the surviving students are forced to dig a mass grave before being lined up and shot. The army kills the university department heads, the professors, the businessmen. Civil servants are tortured and moved to concentration camps. They shell the newspaper buildings and shoot anyone running out. People caught in the streets are shot or bayoneted. The next morning, soldiers raze parts of the city of Dhaka. Over 1 million people live in the shanty towns of the old city, many strong supporters of the Awami League. For 12 hours, the soldiers pour gasoline around block after block and burn them down. People running outside or jumping from windows to escape the flames are shot. Tanks run over squatter colonies. Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists are shot on sight. Whole families are killed together. Overall, the first day's slaughter kills over 10,000 people. Within months, the death toll grows 100-fold. To ensure East Pakistan is dependent on the West for generations, 1/3 of all workers are murdered. Prior to the invasion, there are an estimated 2 million skilled and unskilled workers driving the East Pakistan economy. Their deaths number in the hundreds of thousands. The atrocities committed at Dhaka should have created widespread fear, panic, and discouraged resistance elsewhere. And General Tika believes he can crush any rebellion in 72 hours. But there are severe miscalculations. Some of the Bengali military and police force escape and rally resistance forces. Many of the enraged Bengalis volunteer to fight for an independent Bangladesh. Soon, the Pakistan army finds itself fighting a full-fledged guerrilla war. The brutality at Dhaka is replicated elsewhere across the province. The Muslim Pakistanis, searching for Hindus to exterminate, check males for circumcision. If circumcised, they may survive, but women and children are murdered, though the army outright denies their deaths. Reverends John Hastings and John Clapham write in a letter to England's The Guardian about babies tossed in the air and caught on bayonets, women bayoneted vertically, children sliced up like meat, the heads of others smashed. A correspondent for the Daily Mirror reports that soldiers had buried 2 young boys in mud that came up past their noses, and the crows did the rest. According to Newsweek, an army major announces a need for blood donations. Those who speak up donate blood, all of it, until they die. Hundreds of thousands of Bengalis are rounded up, arrested, and placed into death camps, where they are slaughtered en masse. There are no trials or interrogations. At Harihapara, men, women, and children have their hands bound and are walked to the banks of the Burganji River and are forced to wade knee-deep in water. From the piers above, executioners shoot down on them. In the morning, they are dragged midstream and released into the river. The Western Pakistani army employs sexual violence strategically during the conflict, using rape as a weapon of war to terrorize and demoralize the Bengali population. Reports indicate that many women are subjected to brutal attacks both in their homes and in public spaces, with numerous cases ending fatally. Significant numbers of women are forcibly taken to military installations where they are held captive and subjected to repeated assaults. Some are abused to death. An instance of this grim reality comes to light when 700 women are rescued from a camp at Moen Namati. By the war's end, it is estimated that over 200,000 women have survived rape, bearing the deep psychological and physical scars of their ordeal. The Western Pakistani military leadership, including General Yahya Khan, explicitly utilize rape as a tactical weapon. They aim to degrade the burgeoning Bangladeshi national identity and boost the morale of their own soldiers by raping Bengali women. This horrifying strategy was purportedly intended to transform the ethnic and religious compositions of the population. General Yahya Khan orders his troop to make Bengalis true Muslims by forcibly impregnating Hindu women to produce Muslim offspring. Reports from the time, such as those by Joseph Fried of the New York Daily News, detail the methodical execution of these orders. Fried describes how truckloads of Pakistani soldiers swooped down on villages in the night, rounding up women by force. Some women were assaulted immediately, while others were taken to rape camps. These camps were settings of prolonged horror, where women were detained for months and serially raped in an attempt to impregnate them as part of a campaign to alter the demographic makeup of the region. The accounts of such atrocities confirm that no Bengali women were spared during these assaults. Eyewitnesses and victims shared stories of the Pakistani military's brutal campaign, illustrating a systematic approach to using sexual violence to not only inflict immense physical and psychological trauma on the victims, but also aimed at leaving a lasting impact on the Bengali population's social fabric. In traditional Bengali society, as in many other cultures, chastity and virginity are highly valued, and rape often carries a significant social stigma. Women who are raped are frequently seen as dishonored or tainted. This stigma is so severe that many families feel unable to accept women back into their homes after they have been victims of sexual violence. The shame is often considered to extend to the entire family and can affect the marriage prospects of the other family members. The scale of the violence and explicit use of rape as a tool of ethnic cleansing deepen the trauma and complicate the reintegration of survivors into their communities. Despite some efforts by the newly formed Bangladeshi government to recognize the women as war heroines, societal attitudes are slow to change, and many women face ostracism, abandonment, or worse, upon attempting to return to their families. Millions of refugees flee to India, as was planned, but Yahya Khan does not anticipate the support neighboring India provides to the resistance. Flooded by millions of people, India is faced with feeding and caring for the equivalent of a small European nation. India acknowledges the genocide that is taking place, and as West Pakistan is India's enemy of previous wars within the same generation, begins arming, training, and supplying the Bengalis along the border. By the end of that year, the rebels have reclaimed 25% of East Pakistan. In response, the Pakistan army begins executing boys and men aged 15 to 20 as they are the most likely to join the resistance. India issues a warning to Yahya Khan that if India is attacked, there will be consequences. This threat carries weight, as India outnumbers Pakistan's military 3-1. They have superior arms, and Pakistan's troops are tired from the civil war that has grown to an army of more than 100,000 guerrillas. Regardless, seeing war with India as inevitable, Pakistan launches a surprise bombing attack on India's major air bases. The attacks do little, but enable India to pursue Pakistan as a force of liberation. India invades East Pakistan with 200,000 troops and advances rapidly, overtaking the weary Pakistan army. Within 2 weeks, they surround Dhaka, and Pakistan forces surrender the next day. One of the conditions of surrender is that Pakistan recognize Bangladesh's independence and return Sheikh Mujibur from prison. Destruction in the country is widespread. Pakistan has destroyed property equivalent to 60% of Bangladesh's gross domestic product. The United Nations reports that 70% of all villages are completely destroyed. The death toll is incomplete. No one really knows the final count. The numbers reported in Bangladeshi newspapers from its cities cite 1,247,000 lives. In 267 days, the Pakistan Army kills approximately 1 in every 60 people in Pakistan overall, and 1 in every 25 Bengali and Hindu in East Pakistan. Proportionately, Yahya Khan's cold-blooded killing is more lethal than Stalin or Mao. Yet his name is relatively unknown outside of Pakistan and Bangladesh. Yahya Khan and his generals are dictators. They have the power to kill indiscriminately, and they do. They feel their power threatened by infidels over 1,000 miles away, and genocide follows. After the war, Yahya is forced to resign as president of Pakistan. Following his resignation, he is placed under house arrest as part of a limited investigation into the causes of Pakistan's defeat in the war and the atrocities committed during the conflict. However, he is never formally charged or tried in his role in the events leading up to or during the war. He lives in relative obscurity until his death in 1980. A senior Pakistan military official speaking to reporter Anthony Mascarenhas says, "We are determined to cleanse East Pakistan once and for all of the threat of secession, even if it means killing off 2 million people and ruling the province as a colony for 30 years. Following the Liberation War, Bangladesh emerges as an independent nation in 1971, yet it faces monumental challenges. The war has devastated the country's infrastructure and economy, with millions displaced and a significant portion of its population fallen victim to violence. The immediate task is rebuilding a nation from the ravages of conflict. The government focuses on stabilizing the economy, providing basic necessities, and addressing the massive humanitarian needs. International aid and recognition comes gradually as the new state seeks to establish its place on the global stage. Domestically, the process of healing is intertwined with the efforts to foster a sense of national identity and unity among the diverse population. Bangladesh navigates its path through significant political instability and economic hardships, striving to lay down the foundations of democracy and development in a landscape scarred by genocide and war. For 6 days, as I traveled with the officers of the 9th Division headquarters, I witnessed at close quarters the extent of the killing. I saw Hindus hunted from village to village and door to door, shot offhand after a cursory inspection showed they were uncircumcised. I have heard the screams of men bludgeoned to death in the compound of the circuit house. I have seen truckloads of other human targets and those who had the humanity to try and help them hauled off for disposal under the cover of darkness and curfew. I have witnessed the brutality of kill and burn missions as the army units, after clearing out rebels, pursued the pogrom in the towns and villages. I have seen whole villages devastated by punitive action. And in the officers' mess at night, I have listened incredulously as the otherwise brave and honorable men proudly chew over today's kill. How many did you get? The answers are seared in my memory.